The movie opens with a press conference in modern-day South Korea. The host discusses a recent discovery of significant historical costumes once worn by the Joseon royalty. He introduces a tailor named Dolsok, who is believed to have designed these outfits and started a fashion revolution. Before one of his works is shown, the movie jumps back in time to tell the real story behind that outfit. In the kingdom of Joseon, we see Dolsok making an outfit for the new king. He is the leader of Songyuan, which is the royal court's department responsible for dressing the king and his family. He has worked at Songyuan for 30 years and is about to be promoted to the rank of nobleman. This is a significant accomplishment as he started as a commoner from a poor background. In the next scene, we learn that the former king has passed away and his younger brother has now become the ruler of the kingdom. After several weeks of mourning, the day of the new king's coronation arrives and he joyfully wears the outfit made by Dolsok. Following this, we are introduced to Lee Gongjin, a humble but talented tailor. He lives and works in a noble house where courtesans entertain wealthy men. Because of this, he has befriended some aristocrats who are associated with the royal court. Somewhere else, the kingdom's new queen is getting a robe ready for her husband. Unfortunately, a mishap occurs when her assistant accidentally burns the outfit. This sends the queen into a state of panic as the king's solemn ceremony is scheduled for the next day. She rushes to the most skilled tailor in town, Dolsok, hoping that he can resolve the issue. However, he refuses, claiming it's impossible to complete it in such a short period of time. Afterward, one of the royal ministers approaches the queen and suggests there is a man who can solve the problem. A while later, Gongjin arrives and he is taken aback to see such a grand palace for the first time. When the queen appears, he is mesmerized by her beauty and instantly falls in love with her. He then approaches her and promises that he will repair the dress on time. After this, he works tirelessly all night without any food or rest. In the morning, he goes to the king and submits his finished product. To his delight, the latter loves it so much that he requests Gongjin to make a hunting outfit as well. Everyone is happy with the development except Dolsok, who appears to be a bit jealous. In the following scene, we see a flashback of Gongjin's childhood. He was an orphan who was sold as a slave. However, one day Dolsok found him and took him under his wing. He taught the boy the art of making fabrics and clothes. Back in the present, Gongjin has started working at Songyuan. As a thank you gesture, the queen hands him a golden hairpin. She suggests that he give it to a girl if he ever falls in love. This makes him very happy, and he begins working on the hunting outfit for the king. Dolsok shows him some designs and explains how to make a proper outfit. However, Gongjin uses his own designs since he wants to make it more comfortable. One afternoon, as the king is on his hunting expedition, he accidentally falls off his horse. Witnessing this, everyone around there starts bowing to show him respect. Shortly after, the prime minister's daughter Sumi arrives and offers him a handkerchief for his wound. The king is captivated by her beauty, so he invites her to visit his palace later. Following the incident, a rumor begins circulating that the king is considering marrying Sumi. Upon hearing this, the queen is devastated and scared. It turns out that she has been married to the king for several years, but he has never touched her romantically. One night, a group of wealthy men harass a woman, accusing her of ruining their expensive clothes. Just then, Gongjin intervenes and starts arguing with them. He reveals that their clothes are made of imitation silk, which means they're not expensive at all. Hearing this, everyone starts laughing, and the men leave in embarrassment. Later, Gongjin approaches Dolsok and asks if he's going to become a nobleman soon. The latter confirms this, so the rookie offers to make a beautiful outfit for him. He says that he wants to honor his master. The following day, the queen calls for Gongjin and asks him to make her an outfit for the king. However, he suggests that she should personally make something for him, even if it is small. He thinks an undergarment would be the best option. The queen finds this a bit odd, but he assures her that it's perfectly natural between a husband and wife. Following this, she gets to work under his guidance. They also talk and get to know more about each other. Gongjin reveals that his mother was a tailor who passed away many years ago. Touched by this, the queen shares that her mother also died a long time ago, but she hasn't been able to visit her grave or place flowers on it. Since the king is away on a hunting trip, Gongjin suggests they sneak out, so she dresses up as a commoner and leaves the palace with him. Upon reaching her mother's grave, the queen feels emotional and breaks down in tears. The following day, the king wears the hunting outfit made by our hero, which upsets Dolsok. As the days pass by, Gongjin transforms Joseon's fashion with his innovative talent. He introduces unconventional clothes, such as a bell design for women's handbag. Dolsok, who is attached to traditional forms, finds it challenging to compete with the trendy style of the young designer. Due to this, he fears losing the position he worked his entire life to attain. Meanwhile, the prime minister and other senior officials put pressure on the king to annul his marriage with the queen and marry Sumi instead. This certainly creates some tension in the kingdom. One day, the queen finishes making the undergarment and decides to give it to the king. However, upon reaching his quarters, she sees Sumi's shoes on the doorstep. This breaks her heart, so she promptly leaves without confronting him. Later, an upset queen is approached by Gong Jin, who asks what happened. He thinks she doesn't like the dress he made for her, but she explains there's no point in wearing a beautiful dress if she can't go anywhere. In response, he takes her to a nearby lake where they go for a ride in a boat. During their time together, she shares her frustration about her husband's neglect and breaks down in tears. As the days pass, the king becomes more attracted to Sumi, so Gong Jin comes up with a plan. He makes beautiful and seductive hanboks for the maids so they can capture the king's attention. The plan succeeds, and the king starts lusting after every beautiful maid, distancing himself from Sumi. However, this also causes the prime minister to partner with Do-sok, and they begin plotting against him. Eventually, they manage to convince the king that Gong Jin's work is too vulgar, leading to his expulsion from the palace. Days later, a few Chinese diplomatic delegates are set to visit for an important ceremony where the king of Joseon will pledge allegiance to the emperor of China. The prime minister plans to use this occasion to persuade the king to permanently remove the queen from her position. He plans to make Sumi the central figure of the event alongside the king. Meanwhile, Do-sok, who is eager to strengthen his position, aligns himself with the queen's enemies and begins designing a dress for Sumi. When our hero learns of this, he becomes determined to save the queen. Turns out, he's fallen in love with her. After thinking for a while, he decides to create the most beautiful dress in history that will make her appear as the most beautiful woman in the world. For this, he must take her body measurements personally and not have it done by a female assistant. Since the queen is not allowed to be alone with another man, it will prove to be a dangerous plan. However, he's determined to help her, even if it means risking his own life. Of course, when Do-sok catches wind of this, he becomes jealous. One evening, he visits Gong Jin and warns him that he is putting the queen in danger. However, our hero ignores him and tells him not to interfere in his business. The cunning tailor then proceeds to leave, but along the way, he steals some of Gong Jin's design. On the day of the event, Sumi arrives wearing a beautiful purple hanbok. Shortly after, the queen makes a grand entrance in an exquisite white gold hanbok inlaid with pearl. Her stunning beauty captivates everyone, including the Chinese delegate. She then takes a seat beside the king, who appears to be very proud. Witnessing this, her enemies realize that they've lost, and she won't be dethroned. After the event, Sumi becomes so enraged that she starts cursing and hitting Do-sok for embarrassing her with his second-rate dress. Meanwhile, Gong Jin informs the queen that he's returning to his village and wishes her the best. He then gives her the golden hairpin, signaling that he loves her. Moments later, the king, who has been seduced by his wife's new appearance, shows up. He plans to consummate their marriage and finally have children. However, when he notices the emotional closeness between the queen and the young tailor, he becomes angry. Our heroine tries to explain that they're just talking about clothes, but he doesn't listen to her and walks away. Later, Sumi takes advantage of the situation and tries to seduce the king. She begins manipulating him by claiming that the queen and her tailor are having an affair. Falling for her manipulations, the king becomes very angry and asks Do-sok to create an outfit exactly like Gong Jin made. After it's ready, they secretly insert poison needles into it, planning to frame him. In the next scene, Gong Jin is forcibly brought to the palace, where the king claims that his robe has been poisoned. He also accuses the queen of planning the murder plot to be with her lover. However, realizing that it could cost her life, Gong Jin takes the blame entirely on himself. He claims that he planned all of this alone. Gong Jin is eventually sentenced to death, which leaves the queen in shock. She screams at the king, stating that she's always loved and supported him, but now sees him as a coward whose ego is more important than anything else. When he doesn't respond, she angrily storms out of there. That night, Do-sok feels bad for Gong Jin, so he visits him in jail. He mentions that he advised him not to become involved with the queen, but Gong Jin didn't listen. However, our hero says that it is Do-sok's fear and insecurity that are responsible for everything. He believes that the once famed tailor has now become a coward. Hearing this, Do-sok becomes enraged and says that he will ruin Gong Jin's legacy. He will also ensure that no one will remember his name or the impact he had on the Joseon fashion world. The following day, our poor hero is publicly beheaded, and the queen mourns his innocence. Later, Do-sok visits Gong Jin's deserted studio. While burning down his designs and drawings, he comes across the nobleman's clothes that Gong Jin had promised to make for him. Seeing this, he breaks down in tears, realizing that he genuinely cared for him. The scene then shifts to the present-day conference, where the ceremonial dress designed by Gong Jin is displayed in the museum. Unfortunately, there's a plaque stating that it was designed by Do-sok, the man credited for revolutionizing Joseon fashion.